She had no name, not one that stayed. In a narrow valley outside Bergen they found her lying among stones and ash. Her clothes were burned, her face turned away from the sky. Around her, the ground carried the quiet evidence of fire. Inside her lungs, something else lingered. When they searched her belongings, they found no identity, only fragments, and every fragment led somewhere different.
Subscribe.
Isdal sits between mountains that do not soften easily. The locals call it Death Valley, not for legend, but for what has been found there. On November 29th, 1970, a father and his two daughters walked the slopes above Bergen. The air was cold, the path familiar. They noticed the smell first. Burnt fabric, something heavier beneath it. A body lay in a shallow depression among rocks, curled slightly as if sleep had been interrupted. Police arrived within hours. The woman's upper body was badly burned, her hair singed, her face damaged beyond easy recognition. But the fire had been uneven. Parts of her clothing remained intact. Rubber boots, fragments of a coat. Near her, investigators found items arranged with strange care. An umbrella, a pair of gloves, a purse. Inside the purse there was no wallet, no identification, only objects stripped of context. A comb, some coins, a small amount of cash. The autopsy revealed something more precise. She had died from a combination of burns and carbon monoxide poisoning. In her stomach there were traces of sleeping pills. In her blood enough to suggest intention. But the scene did not settle into a single explanation. It resisted closure. It resisted simplicity. 3 days later, at Bergen railway station, 2 suitcases waited in silence. They had been left in a locker, unclaimed. Inside, the police found something that changed the shape of the case. Clothing, carefully packed. Labels had been removed from every garment. Every name cut away with deliberate hands. There were wigs, several of them, different colors, different styles. There was makeup, expensive but not excessive. There were notebooks, inside them coded entries, rows of letters and numbers, dates paired with symbols. At first glance, meaningless, then patterns began to emerge. Each entry corresponded to a location, a hotel, a city. Investigators traced her movements across Europe, Norway, Germany, France, Switzerland. She had checked into hotels under different names, always alone, always paying in cash. Staff described her in fragments, well-dressed, reserved, watchful. She spoke multiple languages, sometimes German, sometimes French, occasionally broken English. In one hotel, a clerk recalled something unusual. She asked for a room facing the street, then requested a different one that faced the back, away from view. Her behavior was precise, but not relaxed, as if she moved through each space without ever belonging to it. The autopsy deepened the contradiction. Inside her body, doctors found traces of phenobarbital, a sedative, measured but significant. In her lungs, soot, meaning she had been alive when the fire began. Her body showed signs of impact, bruising around the neck. Not enough to confirm strangulation, not enough to dismiss it. Her teeth drew attention, extensive dental work, unusual for the time, gold fillings, complex procedures. The kind that could identify a person if records existed, but no dentist came forward. No match was found. The fire itself raised questions. Burn patterns suggested an accelerant. Traces of gasoline were detected, yet no container was recovered at the scene. No clear source. The official conclusion leaned towards suicide. Sleeping pills, fire, isolation. But the details resisted that conclusion. Why remove all labels? Why travel under false identities? Why maintain coded records of movements? And why die in a remote valley far from any known connection? Witnesses came forward. A man reported seeing a woman matching her description days earlier. She was walking in the mountains, not alone. 2 men followed at a distance, dressed in dark coats, unremarkable except for their silence. Another witness recalled a taxi ride. The woman seemed tense. She looked out the window often, as if expecting someone to appear, or already knowing they would. The case unfolded into theories that never fully aligned. One was espionage. The Cold War had drawn invisible lines across Europe. Norway held strategic importance. Military installations, surveillance points. The coded notebooks suggested structure, movement with purpose, the wigs, the false names, all consistent with tradecraft. Some investigators believed she was a spy, possibly Eastern Bloc, possibly Western. A courier, an observer, someone who lived between identities. Another theory suggested something quieter. A woman escaping her past, reinventing herself across borders, removing labels, changing names, trying to become untraceable. But reinvention leaves traces of its own. And her trail felt too precise, too rehearsed. A third explanation circled back to the official ruling. Suicide. A final act in a life defined by secrecy. The coded notes as personal markers. The travel as isolation. The wigs as protection from recognition. But even in that framing, the details resist comfort. People who plan their own disappearance rarely leave such a structured confusion. They simplify. They do not multiply questions. Decades later, forensic reconstruction offered a new face. Broadcasts reached across Europe. A voice recording released. An appeal to memory. Still, no definitive identity emerged. Only suggestions. Possibilities, but nothing that held. In a valley known for endings, a woman arrived without a beginning. She moved through countries without anchors, spoke in languages without roots. Every object she carried had been stripped of its past. Every step recorded but never explained. The fire consumed what little remained, but not the pattern. That stayed. Somewhere in those coded pages there was a logic, a rhythm to her movement, a reason for every name she used and every room she chose. But the key was never found. The Isdal woman remains exactly what she was in death. Observed, documented, unknown. A life reduced to fragments that refuse to assemble. And in that refusal, something unsettling persists. Not the mystery of who she was, but how completely a person can exist and leave nothing behind that can prove it. If a life can be lived without a name, what does it take to truly disappear?
Like and subscribe.